Welcome, everybody. Good evening. The January 28th edition of Speaking of Zane. Good to have everybody in here on a Sunday night. What is this? Our 266th edition of Speaking of Zane. We started all the way back in August of 2018. So we've been going for quite some time now. And I never imagined I'd be able to do this every week and find something to talk about, but we've managed somehow. And our topics have sort of grown over the years. Started out, obviously, talking about Zane. And like the banner says, speaking his name to keep his memory alive. And then we started doing different things and adding things and visiting veteran cemeteries and thanking and acknowledging veterans as we encounter them in our daily lives and sort of tracking those things. But and then just talking about various organizations that we all aware of and are affiliated with that are helpful and friendly to veterans and the military community. So how about that? Well, let's see who we've got on board tonight before we get into it. Daryl's in there from Florissant, Missouri. Steve's in there from Papillion, Nebraska. The Hillmans are in there. I always forget where y'all are at. Terry Bass is in there. Terry is down in the Kansas City area. I don't know if he's Kansas City proper. My Aunt Cindy's in there over in Alabama. My dad in South Georgia. Colin Krim in Albuquerque. And Jimbo Miller in Omaha, Nebraska. Okay, the Hillmans are in Minnesota. Awesome. Well, good to have everybody in here. I know we have a lot of other people coming and going throughout the course of an evening, and then we have a lot of people that watch the recording. So to everybody, thank you for joining, and appreciate you guys. As I've mentioned over and over again, you guys are my therapy. And I do not think, just because I have a loud mouth, I don't think my loss or our loss is any greater than the losses that you all have suffered. And I know many of you have lost spouses and even children like we have. So don't think that I think our loss is any worse than any of yours, for sure, but I just feel compelled to talk about it. There's my old Air Force buddy Ted in there. Ted's in New Bern, North Kakalaki, if I recall. Ted, I guess we talked about it. I graduated from Havelock High School just up the road there from New Bern many moons ago. We're planning another reunion. I guess what's going to be our What are we planning? 45th? 45th, I think we're planning. All right. Well, let's see. Speaking of years, this is kind of funny. I don't see any of the Georgians in here might remember this, but 2 years ago, or 2 years ago, 10 years ago today, um, we had a weather event here in Atlanta that's been commonly referred to as Snowmageddon. We had pretty serious for us snow event that happened in the mid morning here in Atlanta and crippled the city 10 years ago today. And fortunately, I was working from home that day and did not get stuck out in it. But many, 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 many thousands of people got stuck at work and got stuck out on the roads. And if you know, Atlanta has a lot of roads, like interstate. We got some interstate cross sections here. Anyway, it was a crazy thing. And in fact, the head of the Georgia Emergency Management Agency ultimately was fired for making the wrong call on that event. Um, kids were at school. Kids were at school overnight. Kids were on the buses in the middle of the interstate. Our son Zane was out on the interstate and ended up walking. Guys, I don't know, it was 5 or 6, 7 miles. He ended up just abandoning his car like many, many others did, and just walked, headed toward home, and went to the closest uh, place that he could go, and that was his in-laws, Dave and Donna Wallens, and I think it was 5 or 6, 7 miles maybe that he walked. And ended up taking him back to get his car a few days later. But yeah, that was pretty crazy. Speaking of weather, a little bit warmer than it has been this week. We were well up into the 60s here in North Georgia this week, falling back down into the to the 40s for high today. But we had some really nice weather here the last few days. And Lori and I are actually heading down to Savannah. I think we're going to drive down sometime on Tuesday, stay Tuesday night, and we'll be there a good bit of the day Wednesday, and then driving back. It's about a 5-hour drive from where we're at north of Atlanta. But we're going down there we hope to see the grandkids. Tyler's children live down there. Tyler's girlfriend, Raina, is their mom. And we hadn't seen them in some time. And I just sent her a note to let her know we were coming and see if we could grab some dinner with them. Anyway, I hope that we're able to. It's kind of short notice for her, but I'm going down there for 15th, I think, a 15th anniversary lunch of the arrival of the B-17 bomber called City of Savannah at the National Museum of the Mighty Eighth Air Force near Savannah. So we're going down there for that. There's a couple of activities during the day, starting at about 11, and with a talk, and then a lunch, and then another thing about the 15th. Well, you guys know I've been affiliated with that project for 13 or so years, very involved when we were living in Savannah in the restoration of the radio compartment and the eventual periodic activation of the radio compartment with our official call sign, official amateur radio call sign, WW2COS, Whiskey 2 COS, City of Savannah. That was the call sign I was able to get from the FCC. And anyway, we're going to go down there for that. Kind of a last minute thing. Didn't really know about it till this past week, but So we hope to see the grandkids when we're down there. Speaking of the Eighth Air Force, there was a mini series that's been in the works for over 10 years that finally premiered on Friday. It's called Masters of the Air. It's based on a book called Masters of the Air, but it's a Tom Hanks and gosh, who is it? Spielberg, Hanks and Spielberg miniseries. I don't know how many episodes there are, but the first two debuted Friday evening, and I watched them both, and some of the research that was done in preparation for that was done at the Mighty Eighth Air Force Museum in Savannah, and some of the audio for certain things were done there. And anyway, um, that debuted Friday night, so I carved out a couple hours to watch that, and it was really good. Okay, well, let's see. And because of that, you guys know I'm a hat person. I'm normally wearing a ball cap. Um, I got quite a collection of ball caps over the years, but every Sunday night, I try to find a hat that has something to do with what's going on around here at the fabulous McDonald Estate and Insane Asylum. And because Masters of the Air just came out, and because we're going down to the mighty 8th Air Force Museum, that is why the 8th Air Force ball cap is the hat of the week. So there you go. All right, let's see. Um, Mike Roll's in there. Hey, Mike. Mike's in Indiana. Good to have you in there. All right, well, let's see. What else we got here? I mentioned last week, I think it was probably the first time I mentioned it, but we are planning a service for Tyler um, in March. And the reason we don't have an exact date yet is because we're waiting on someone, a close friend of Tyler's, who we've asked not only to attend, but to speak at the service. We've asked him to come, and we're waiting on his availability, which is going to dictate the dates. So we were originally looking at March the 9th, but it could be the 16th. We're waiting on this guy David before we know exactly when that's going to happen. So stay tuned. Stay tuned. I think we'll feel much better once we've properly sent him off and celebrated his life, as tragic as the end was. But okay, well, let's see. We had a couple of we had some birthdays along the way this week, but I didn't write them all down. If somebody had a birthday that you know of, put them in the chat there. I saw a couple along the way this week, but didn't jot them down. But we did have some this week in military history items that were notable. And these were tragedies. On January 27th of 1967, a cabin fire during the launch rehearsal test at Cape Kennedy killed all three crew members of Apollo 1, or what was to be Apollo 1, Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee were killed there on the launch pad. It was a fire in the module. And then on January 28th, fast forward 1986, and if you remember where you were at when you saw this, put it in the chat. But on January 28th, 1986, the Space Shuttle Challenger broke apart about 73 seconds, if I recall, into the flight, killing all 7 on board, of course. And yeah, just terrible. I think it was let's see, it was 11:39 a.m. Eastern, and Lori and I heard about it on BBC television. Of course, we were stationed at Mildenhall at the time, and it was about 4:30 there, 4:39 when it happened. So it might have been after 5 o'clock before we heard about it. I was at home, um, 4:30 in the afternoon. I'd probably just got back from alert, honestly, because Tyler was born December 21st, and I was home for that, but then I had to go on alert, I think the week after, or anyway, I was home at 4:30 in the afternoon I don't remember if it was a Tuesday, might have been a Monday or Tuesday, but anyway, this was this was the this was pre-internet, of course, and we didn't have 24-hour news cycle like we did once CNN really got going. We just had four channels in England, BBC One, BBC Two, BBC Three, and what was it, ITV or something else? But we were, yeah, Lori and I saw it on the television. I remember right there at the second house we lived in Beck Row. Um, we lived right across the street. I don't remember who was living in the house across the street at the time, but that house changed hands from Pax Troop to Pax Troop to Pax Troop. Let me see if I can get the chronology right. The Seltzers, Mark and Jill Seltzer, lived in that house. We're across the street. The Westbrooks moved into that house, Jeff and Vicki Westbrooks. And then Ken and Sheila Daniels moved into that house. Lori, help me if I get any of this wrong. And then Gary and Judy Bays moved into that house. So it wasn't uncommon, and you guys that have been overseas know that oftentimes when someone rotated out, and another Air Force member was looking to move right back in. Same thing with cars; they would just pass from one to one to one. But I think I got that sequence right. But we didn't live in that place when the Seltzers lived there, but I think we did when the Westbrooks. So we saw the Westbrooks and then the Daniels and then the Bayes. But anywho, yep. Okay, well, let's see. Oh, hey, Daryl, the Granahan's are in there. Good to have you in there. Miss Fox down in the Tampa area with My Warrior's Place. Yeah, Steve, there's another one in there. This one, the greatest movie of all time. Yeah, I tell you, it's one of the most entertaining, and I watch it at least once a year. Dr. Strangelove. Just there'll be no fighting in the war room. Oh gosh, what an awesome movie! I'm gonna need to watch that again. I haven't watched it. Well, of course, we're only in January, but I don't think I've watched it over the last year. But a good one. And then fast forward yet again, January 28th of 2017. I guess 7 years ago already. Our son Jackson graduated from basic training, and he went on to serve for about 4 years. But we went down for his graduation there. He was an honor graduate, and it was a great. We got to watch Zane graduate, then Hannah graduate, and then Jackson graduate. So those are some of the most proudest moments. And then, of course, our daughter Charlotte, she's an FBI Academy graduate, but it was during COVID, and they didn't have a graduation ceremony, so we didn't get to, stupid COVID ruined that. But we were still proud of her. But all right, speaking of Charlotte, she lives in Chicago now, and she's been getting a serious dose of winter up there, and she decided, to heck with this, I'm out of here for the weekend. And she, of course, she can fly anywhere in the world that she wants, and anywhere that United flies. And she decided to go down to Costa Rica for a few days. She's down at a resort in Costa Rica, just kind of chillaxing, and then she'll be heading back. She's got a busy year ahead of her. She was telling me some of the places she's got to go for work and various conferences and things that she does in her capacity with United. Good for her. All right. Let's see. Let's see. Let me look at the chat here. All right. Some Facebook user says, sorry I'm late. Lots going on here. Yeah, I don't know who that is because sometimes it doesn't pass through to StreamYard for some reason. But welcome, whoever you are. I don't know why Alexa is in there yapping at me. Did I say Alexa? I don't know. Anyway. All right. Well, let's see. Let's move on to a couple of challenges here. Let me mute myself and shut Alexa up for a second. Okay, got it. Had to yell in there. The speaking of that, the two grandkids, they'll often run around up here. The two that live locally, Carson's 4 and Everett's 7, they'll come up here and running around, and they love to go in and talk to Alexa. Well, I just said it. Now she'll probably bark back at me here in a minute. But they'll go in there and tell her to tell me a joke or say something goofy just to hear the response. Anyway, they were having a kick out of that this afternoon. All right. Well, let's see. Veteran Cemetery Challenge. We do a couple challenges here for the new folks. We started these challenges along the way. And one of them is, since we placed Zane in a national cemetery, we've become sort of hypersensitive to those places. And I'm on a mission to visit as many of them as I can. And I travel quite a bit, so I'm able to go and see. Anyway, they just became such a part of what we do that I, many years ago, issued this challenge to the rest of you to join us in visiting them. And a couple of times a year, okay, Lori, I will. A couple times a year, most people here would have a reason to, and that's Reach Across America around Christmas, and then Memorial Day. Memorial Day, all the national cemeteries and many of the state veteran cemeteries place flags at the headstones. But anyway, there's Ken. Hey, Ken, good to have you in there, buddy. But anyway, so we started doing this, and over the course of the years, we've added new ones, and you guys have visited new ones, and we add them. And I have a map that I pin, virtual map that I pin. I haven't updated it in a little bit, but I should probably share that on the Facebook page for those who haven't seen it. But anyway, it's very interesting. We've made, since we started doing it, this group that meets regularly, we've made 1,077 visits to a veteran cemetery or to a cemetery that has veterans. It doesn't have to be a national cemetery, but we've done over 1,000 visits, and we've done that to 181 different cemeteries all across the country and beyond. Steve and Kathy have done some in Europe, and Lori and I just did Cambridge in the UK. And so we sort of, when you guys do that, you tell me, you either post it or you tell me, and I keep track of them, and we talk about them every Sunday night. But once I know this week, Daryl made at least one visit to Jefferson Barracks. Daryl has a wife Wanda, who's buried at Jefferson Barracks. And then my dad has a wife that's buried at Evergreen, my mom. And I always assume that Dad has at least made 2 visits a week. He probably makes more than that. The way he's been upkeeping her plot there is just fantastic. And my sister. But this week I know Daryl made a visit to JB, and then my dad. So I think we had about 3 visits this week. But yeah, over 181 different ones. So if anybody here ever goes to visits a veteran cemetery or a cemetery with veterans, let me know. We'll add it to the list. We will add it to the list. And then we also started doing, many of you guys, you didn't need me to tell you this, but you acknowledge other veterans. And um, so we started, I thought, well, that'd be kind of cool if we did it as a group. And Lori and I happened to be down at in Texas. We were down there for our daughter Charlotte went to Texas A&M for grad school, so she was there a couple years, and we went to 2 or 3 football games. And one time we flew down, and in the Houston airport on the way back, I ran into a Vietnam vet, or had a Vietnam vet hat on. Anyway, so I stopped to chat with him, and then on Sunday night, for Speaking of Zane, I talked about it, and I said, "Well, it gives me a good idea. Let's turn that into a challenge as well." So every week when we're out and about, um, and we come across a fellow veteran or a service member or a first responder, and we strike up a conversation, or we say thank you or acknowledge them or whatever. That's another thing we've been keeping track of for several years, and since we've been doing that, um, we've this relatively small group of people that gets together most Sunday nights. We've interacted with, said thank you to, acknowledged um, 2,452 people. How about that? Not too shabby. Well, I'm going to have to add that. I have to add Daryl's. He's throwing one in the chat there. So let me add Daryl, and then increase our count by 1. But yeah, if you guys do that during the course of the week, and you want to let me know about that, either pop it on the Speaking of Zane Facebook group, or put it here in the chat, and we'll get it added to the list there. So I've added Daryl's. That takes us up to 4. That takes us to 2,453. So I appreciate you guys doing that with us. I get a kick out of it. It's not like we're hunting veterans. I'll tell you what, if you go to Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart, or Kroger, you are going to run into a veteran somewhere on the way. Or for Lori, it's the post office, it seems. But anyway, I enjoyed talking to fellow vets, and I don't always necessarily say thank you, or I might just strike up a conversation, if I see a hat or a shirt or something, and chat with them. But this week I had some at work. I had there's a young man who came through my academy program that I lead at our company, that's in the National Guard. He's in the Army National Guard, and he spent a year with me, and along with 11 of his colleagues, and they graduated last summer, and now they're out in the field. Well, as soon as he graduated in 1st of August, he was supposed to go to his team, and the Army activated him and sent him to a tech school, and where he's been till this past week. So I felt bad because I had worked out a deal to place him with this particular team, and they were excited to have him, and it ate up one of their headcount. And so I transferred him to them, and then he gets activated by the Army, and now he's not available to them for, I guess it's been 6 months. And anyway, so he called me this past week and just wanted to let me know how he was doing and what was going on. He's at Fort Gordon in Georgia, going to an IT related school, which is right in line with what he does for us. So it couldn't have been any better. But anyway, I got a chance to chat with him, and turns out that he was the distinguished honor grad for his platoon, got the highest GPA of the whole course. So so anyway, I chatted with him. His name's Brad. And then got another guy that wants to get into my academy called Nick, who's in the Tennessee Guard, and met him this week. And then I got a colleague of mine at work, John, who was in the Coast Guard, chatted with him on Friday. So that was 3 for me. Daryl's 4 takes us to 2,453. All right. Ken, Ken. Well, we're glad you're here, Ken. You had a reboot or something? Yep, but you're here. We see you now, buddy. Okay, let's see. Oh, Dad, you're going to be. That's right. Dad's going to be up here in the Atlanta Metro this week for some tests at Emory. So I'm going to try to get over there and see him and her. Him and Sharon, I think, are coming. Let's see. And Daryl says, when someone's thank you for your service, what's your response? I say thank you by reaction, but yeah. What do I do? Well, when people tell me thanks, I just say my pleasure. I kind of do like the Chick-fil-A people. I just say, well, it was my pleasure. And or sometimes I might say, well, thank you for saying thank you. But I don't know. What about the rest of you? Some others might pipe in there, but okay. Well, let's see. That was it for that. I don't. Only thing going on in organizations. I think if you want to do the virtual 5K, the Running to Honor 5K that our friend Aaron Bartle does, heads up in July. If you want to do that as a member of the Speaking of Zane team, you can do that. Go to runningtohonor.something.org maybe. Anyway, look at the Speaking of Zane Facebook group. But anyway, you can do it virtually. But I think the cost, it's not very expensive in the first place, but I think the cost increases tonight at midnight. But go to runningtohonor.org. If you want to run along with us virtually, we'll be doing it again this year. I may actually run this year. I began, you guys know my story the last couple of years of weight loss and exercise. And the last few weeks, I'm like, my walks aren't, I do 3 or 4 miles, depending on the route I take, but they haven't felt challenging. They haven't felt very challenging. So I've cranked it up, I'll crank the pace up, and I've started running, and it feels totally comfortable. So I've started running some days, almost half of it. So about a mile of the 2 mile. If I do the 2 mile route, I'll run all the way back and feel really good. And it gets my heart rate up, and it gets me back to the house. But all right, Daryl, we'll see you later. But hey, Daryl, guess who called me last night? Jerry Parker. We had a good chat. He calls me every now and then, but we had a good chat. All right, let's see. Only other thing on that, organizations, got a call from Kelly. Kelly at My Warriors Place, who's a friend of the program. She sold the front half of the property of My Warriors Place, keeping the riverfront part. So that closed this past week, which was great news. And she's introduced me to the new owner, the person that bought that front half to the road, and he wants to chat about internet access and wireless coverage for some surveillance cameras and things like that. But anyway, I'll be chatting with him about that right there adjacent to My Warriors Place. So, and then I think that's pretty much it for organizations. Things that I'm aware of there. I did see that there is a new for Reach Across America, which is just 11 short months away. There's a new motto for the year, a new slogan for the year, and I can't remember it, but you can look it up at Reach Across America. But good stuff. We did have a couple of incidents this week. We always want to acknowledge any heroes that we've lost, either in combat or in training. And we've often talked about how training can, combat obviously inherently by definition dangerous, but training for it can be. We have lost a lot in training, for sure. But these two are real incidents. I mentioned last week the two SEALs that we lost. They had not been identified at the time, but they have since. And So I think we'll share real quick. They deserve to be remembered, of course. And there they are. Special Operator 2, Gage Ingram. Special Operator 1, Chris Chambers. And they were not, their bodies have not been recovered. Of course, you guys probably read the story. They were getting ready to board one of those terrorist boats and got swept over. But just a terrible tragedy for sure. And then I just read this afternoon that we suffered the loss of 3 U.S. troops in a drone attack in Jordan, on the border of Syria, I believe. And 3 U.S. troops, obviously, names will not be released until their families are notified, rightly so. So we'll certainly acknowledge them next week when we know the names. There were several other injured, I believe, the article stated, but just terrible for sure. Okay, Daryl to the rescue there. The 2024 Reach Across America theme, Live with Purpose. Well, that's great advice, isn't it? Live with purpose. Thank you, Daryl. That's a good one. I kind of like that one. This past year's was Serve and Succeed. Serve and Succeed. But I think I like Live with Purpose better, even better. Terry says 30 plus were injured. That's terrible. And I think it was at their barracks, if I read the article right. Anyway, more facts will come out for sure along the way. But okay, well, I think, folks, that is it for this edition of Speaking to Zane. Hey, listen, if any of you, well, first of all, if you visit a cemetery, let me know and I'll put it on the list. If you come across a fellow veteran or a first responder or a service member, whether you thank them or not, let me know and we'll put that on the list. We'll count that. If you know of any activities or any good work that any organizations are doing for veterans, service members, their families, first responders, shout that out and let me know. And if you ever want to share something on the episode here, I can pull you right in. And I would love that because I'm getting tired of hearing the sound of my own voice. And I need some others to come in and help with some content. So if anybody ever wants to share anything, you guys know the subject matter by now, you know the format and everything that we do here. If you ever got anything you want to bring, let me know and I'll pull you right in. I think the last time, and I've had some guests along the way as well, Kelly and Aaron and others along the way. And then we had Ken, not this past December, but the December before. Pulled Ken in as a guest, and he was able to share his father's story of Pearl Harbor. But yeah, if anybody ever has anything they want to share, you are more than welcome. I would love nothing more than to pull you in on the feed and hear what you have to share with us. So be thinking about that. And if you're bashful, get over it. All right, folks. Well, thanks so much for joining as always. And we'll be right back here next Sunday night. Well, what will have happened between now and then? Well, Lori and I are running down to Savannah. We hopefully will have seen the grandkids. I will have visited the Mighty 8th Air Force Museum. I'll tell you all about what we did there. And then back home, that'll be Sunday night. Monday, I'm going down to Orlando. Not tomorrow, the next Monday, I'll be going down to Orlando for the week for work. So we got some things coming up. And then, yeah, of course, Lori reminds me in the chat, of course, I had this in my notes. I didn't mention it, but this week is the 8th anniversary of Zane's passing, January 31st, and we'll be in Savannah, January 31st. So remember us on that day. Those days, birthdays, and of course the death anniversary days are, you can't help but think, you can't help but just kind of think and get caught up in it, and remember, your mind goes back and you remember the events of the day and all of that. But I don't want to forget. I never want to forget it. But anyway, so yeah, January 31st, just terrible. Um, it was a terrible experience. It's been terrible without him. Now 8 years. It has doesn't seem like it should be that long because it still feels so fresh, at least to me. But all right, folks. Well, hey, I appreciate every one of you. Look forward to seeing you again right here next Sunday night for Speaking of Zane.